the
I love
topic
it.
for today is mental health, and I want to start kind of talking about my own challenges that I've been having lately, and probably knew that this was something for a lot longer, but suppressed it for lots of different reasons. One, didn't think I wanted to burden Leanne with any of my own problems or challenges, and two, maybe just the stigma
Yeah,
behind maybe getting vulnerable and letting people know that it's okay not to be okay all the time.
absolutely.
So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm coming from, and kind of started about 2 months ago. I taught one of our St. Mary's courses, and it was the emotional intelligence session. This one, in our emotional intelligence assessment, as you know, there's three competencies on stress. And
Yeah,
I don't or didn't love the so what do you do about it? So I created a self-assessment for participants to help them kind of gather their own insights on how much stress they might be carrying or where they're at. And so it
yeah,
was things like, how's your sleep? Are you impulsive, or how's your self-regulation? How's your focus? Are you
yeah,
feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling withdrawn at times? Are you always tired or drained? And then, of course, what are your thoughts telling you? What are the stories that you're telling yourself in your head? And started with the participants. 10 out of 10 of them. There was 20 questions, and 10 out of 10 of them said no one was less than 17 markers for their own stress, and I was no
wow.
different. I was 17, 18 myself, and so that was kind of a real aha for me to say, listen, something isn't right here, and we got to start doing something about it. And so,
Yeah,
we talk a lot about this, but when it's your own personal journey, it maybe isn't quite as easy
that's
to
right.
figure out. And so I have a friend of mine who we both know actually, but he is in the same boat. He's talking to someone. He gave me this person's name, and um, I've only talked to them 3 times so far. But what I would tell you is it's making a big difference to just get it out, quite
Absolutely.
frankly, and be okay that I'm struggling right now.
Yeah,
I'm struggling personally. We've got a lot going on as a family, as you know, selling a house, trying to run this business, two busy kids, trying to find time for me and my wife, amongst other things. And it's just not easy. Life's
wearing
not
a lot of
easy.
different hats.
And yeah, yeah. And I'm just learning to accept that that's okay.
Yeah,
And even talking more about it with Leanne, and letting her know that where I'm at, and we are actually way more communicative now than we've been in a long time. But I would tell you the biggest thing I've done is I've gotten rid of this loan for largely. So I was in that death scroll thing every night
yeah.
after dinner, just sit on the couch for hours, and that's not good for anyone, as you know.
It's
So it's been a journey. I'm not done yet, but I just wanted to open up this for lots of people to just kind of realize that we hear you. We
yeah,
we know what you're going through, and life is hard.
yeah,
And it's okay to be feeling what you might be feeling too. So I wanted to start by just sharing my own journey, but then thought it was important that you and I talked about, so what does this
absolutely.
mean for the leaders we work with? And so just gonna throw it over to you and get your thoughts on that first.
Yeah, well, certainly, first and foremost, John, I appreciate you showing some vulnerability and sharing that with us. And I think when obviously this is a very very important topic. It's a topic, something that touches. I think you'd be hard up to find anyone who isn't touched in some way, shape, or form these days by the topic. And I think really that's the kind of the acceptance and the realization of that, and like you said, realizing that it's okay to feel that way, is probably the biggest piece. It's probably the biggest step, is kind of accepting that, kind of it's reality. It's not weakness. It's today's world, it's funny, you showed your phone there. I've got one thing kind of bolted in behind my computer screen right now, and it's put the phone away. And it's kind of just the reality of, unfortunately, of the world that we're in right now. It comes with a lot of great things, but it comes with a lot of negatives as well. And the devices, the social media, the information overload. You say the doom scrolling, certainly kind of the global uncertainty out there. All of those things. It's we're shaped by an environment, and I think it's difficult to not to be affected by that in some way, shape, or form. And I think certainly coming out of the pandemic a few years back as well, it really put this in the spotlight for a lot of the people. And I know I struggled at times during the pandemic with my own mental health. And again, the toughest thing probably just, again, that acceptance, that realization that it's okay, and that it's not a weakness. And and I think it connects and meshes very well with so many of the things that we talk about as it relates to, leadership and the way that we lead, and leading with empathy, and, that, showing that you care, and leading by example, leading by the front. All of these things, I think, they mesh so well, and I think help us from certainly from a recognition of mental health concerns. But I think as a leader, it really is, it's a big responsibility, to be aware, and to be, again, able to kind of, foster, develop that culture of, open, transparent communication that allows people to, share their struggles, to share their experiences without any sort of judgment, or any kind of, repercussions, if you will. I think, again, it's a very real thing for leaders out there, and not just senior leaders as well. We talk about senior leaders, but so often it's the frontline managers who are the ones who are dealing with this on a regular basis. And I think it's so important that businesses, that employers give these frontline managers the tools, the resources they need to be able to, first and foremost, kind of recognize the signs of mental health challenges, and then to kind of give them the skills, give them a little bit of training development in, how to initiate those conversations, and how to, work with our team members to, to find those resources and leverages those resources, and those help. And the other big connection as well that kind of comes to mind as we're talking about this is kind of that, again, that leading from by example, that leading from the front kind of perspective. And I think gone, or hopefully gone, less and less are those days of the boss always being the first one in the building, last one out of the building, not using all their vacation time. I think it's really important that leaders do, kind of walk the talk, that they aren't necessarily always the last one in the building. They aren't necessarily always the first one through the front door, that they are using their vacation times, the resources that are available to them, that they're sharing their experiences as well,
Yeah.
that they're being empathetic, and they're showing vulnerability, just like we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, I love all that. And so kind of leads me to what I've been thinking a lot about lately. So, what signs should leaders be looking for, first of all,
Yeah,
to maybe give them indications that their team members aren't doing as well, mentally, maybe.
yeah,
And then, the harder part maybe is, how do you broach a conversation like that? And so, from the first part, it's that, again, kind of looking for, are they more impulsive than they
yeah.
usually are? Do they seem like maybe they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, or they're, with my kids, I call it huffle pumping when they're, stuff like that. Are you getting more of that than you're used to from them? Do they look tired? Do they look drained? It's all of these types of things that I would say we want to be looking for that are changes from what we're used to in our team as a
Yeah.
start. So, love to get your additions on that. Then I'll go into some of the questions that I'm thinking of in terms of how we broach it.
Yeah, well, John, I certainly think you nailed a lot of those signs, and I do think it's important as well to kind of tell people that we're talking from our experience. We're not, certainly not mental health care practitioners in any way, shape, or form, but we can speak to our own experiences as well as that of our clients and our families as well. But I think a lot of those things you mentioned, a lot of those sudden kind of behavioral changes, things like even as simple as decreased performance or productivity before jumping to conclusions, checking in with your team members, things like absenteeism,
Mm.
withdrawal from, social events or, work-based social events, or even just, small talk with coworkers, general disengagement in work, things like procrastination or missed deadlines that didn't exist previously with his employees. These things can be certainly signs of mental health challenges.
Yeah. So I love your additions, and I love the perspective of as leaders, let's not just assume that they don't care or they don't want to or
That's
things
right.
like that, because that's often not the case. So I love that. So now it's on to the harder part about how do we actually broach that. And so some of the questions that I kind of came up with, first of all, it's about sort of opening that door. How do we even open the door? And so a couple questions that I found or that I like are just, hey, Alain, how you been feeling lately?
Yeah.
And another one I like in this one was, Alain, if your energy was a fuel gauge, where would it be today? And it's sort of that unintrusive. I'm not saying there's problems or anything, but it's a way just to get a gauge of where you're at. Now, I think the predecessor of all this, and we've talked about this before, is how safe is our relationship? Because
Yeah.
you're not going to give me anything if you don't trust me, if you don't feel safe to. And so I think leaders, we got to be working on that to make sure all the things you've said, Alain, about being vulnerable ourselves and humanizing ourselves and empathy and stuff are what's going to build it to the point where they will open up. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of the first part of it. And then you kind of get into exploring where they're at from a stress or burnout perspective. Are there any of your tasks or expectations that are feeling unmanageable right now?
Yeah.
What helps you to recharge during a busy or stressful day? What part of your week are you finding most draining? So questions like that. We can do some well-being or just check-ins.
Yeah.
What are you doing for fun? I know
Yeah.
that that's one I've lost is doing things for fun, and I'm trying to get back to that now. So just getting outside with the kids, getting outside with the dogs, going for walks, doing things that I know once I do it, I love doing it, and so we can just ask that for people. What's a
Yeah.
small habit that makes a positive difference in your day? Things like that. So and then of course as leaders you said this, Alain, we're not mental health practitioners, nor should we. But as leaders, we should also know what resources and supports our business or our
That's right.
companies have for people. And so then, if we feel like that's where we need to go, we can broach it by, would it be helpful for you to talk to someone else, our EAP or whatever support systems you might have? Is there anything else we can do in our one-on-one meetings to support your well-being? Things like that. So those are just some of the questions that I kind of came up with. Any
Yeah.
others that popped to mind for you?
Well, for me, it's always kind of that age old question: what's keeping you up at night?
There you go.
Is one of those kind of open ended questions that can encourage some of that open, honest conversation. Again, if that work has happened in the first place, kind of build that trust and build that relationship with your team members. Um, it's interesting as well as we're talking about this. I'm thinking of ways, even prior to having those conversations, or prior to kind of even recognizing some of those signs of mental health challenges within our team members, what are some of the things that that leaders, again, whether senior leaders, frontline managers, what are things that they can do to support positive mental health? And I think there are some relatively, I don't want to say simple, but I think there are some some relatively simple, impactful things that leaders can do to kind of build that culture and foster that culture of kind of open, honest communication. And and when hearing you talk as well about going outside, playing with the kids, that idea of work-life balance, which I think has come a long way in recent years, really jumps out to me. And I think it's incumbent on leaders to make sure that they are encouraging that work-life balance within their teams, because I think it really is important. And in fact, I know, John, we always we so often come back to what we both love most, sports and coaching, and making the connection there. Exactly which coach it was escapes me at the moment, but I was watching a clip of a college football coach not all that long ago, and talking about the old culture of, getting you're in the gym at 4 a.m., you're breaking film down till 11 p.m., you crash on the couch for a couple hours, get up and do it again. And that's kind of gone to the wayside. And this one coach was talking about how he not only encourages, but enforces that his staff members are at every one of their children's events, whether it's a Little League baseball game, whether it's a dance recital, whatever it may be. He has his finger on the pulse of those things, and he literally, mandates that those things happen. And I think that's a great example, of how a leader, a really strong leader, can again kind of build that culture of mental health and work-life balance and overall wellness.
Yeah. So a couple things I hear in there. One is leaders taking a proactive approach to
Yeah,
this. We may not always know when it's going to come for people, but if and when it does, the fact that we've been talking about it will make it easier for them
yeah,
to open up to us. So it's making that safe place there for that. I do also love the work life balance, or blending, if you will. Listen, sometimes we work at 8 at night after the kids go to bed
yeah,
to get things done, but I know you and I wholeheartedly make our kids sporting events, because that's what's really
absolutely.
important to us, or whatever event it is. Doesn't have to be sporting. So that's important, I guess. Just sort of thinking, wrapping this up, this has become a hot topic with our clients already,
Absolutely.
so much so that we've added a session on it. As you know, we're doing this with several of our largest clients, helping them to look for these signs, how to coach, how to talk about it, how to create the space for it. And I'll just sort of finish with the statistic that I found. This comes from the Bell Let's Talk stuff. uh, Mental health is costing the Canadian economy 55 billion with a B dollars annually, and it's over 300 billion in the U.S. I found a number from the Society for Human Resource Management in the U.S. So this is an important topic. I'd love, Alain, for you and I to keep this topic going and
Absolutely.
not drop it, because I know I need it personally, and I think a lot of our people that might be watching this might need it too. So, any
Absolutely.
last words from your perspective?
No, John, I'll just say I think that is a great point you just made, because sometimes, when talking about this topic and other similar topics, it's, people may just think of it as, a good or right thing to do, which it absolutely is, to focus and prioritize this. But there's a business case to it as well. from a productivity, from a retention, from a attraction perspective. There's a business case to be made there. So on top of all those things, I think it's a really important subject. I'm glad that we're talking about it and continuing to talk about it. And hopefully we can help you in some way, shape, or form, help your team members as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions or if you just want to have a conversation. I know John and I make ourselves both available for that all the time. You can find our contact information at our website, www.fairwindstraining.com. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.